others by his example. One of the things he planted was a butternut tree. Butternuts were a new variety for us. It's an eastern United States tree, but it produced a product, a white walnut, that would last and last and last. And this butternut tree really
Communications Director for the House Republican Caucus, and I want to thank you for joining our event today. Just a quick introduction of Republican leadership here in the legislature. With us today from the House Republican Caucus, we have House Republican Deputy Leader Chris Corey of the 15th District, and Floor Leader April Connors from the 8th District. And from the Senate Republican Caucus, we have Senate Republican Leader John Braun of the 20th District and Floor Leader Shelley Short from the 7th District. And Senator Short will have to leave around 9:45 if the event runs long. So with that, I will turn it over to Representative Corey for some opening remarks.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to see your sort of smiling faces. Welcome to day 30 of the legislature. Halfway there, but I'm not going to sing the Bon Jovi song to you. But I think a lot of Washingtonians right now are living on a prayer. There's a lot of stuff that are keeping people up at night that we're hearing from our constituents around the state. So, you know, as House Republicans and also Senate Republicans, we're working to address a lot of the issues that people are concerned about. Yesterday was policy cutoff. So there was a lot of fiscal cutoff. So there was a lot of scramble to get stuff to the floor, good and bad. I want to highlight a couple of those before I turn it over to Republican Leader Braun. Some stuff that is still very much alive in rules as we move into floor action this week that we are concerned about, that I think most Washingtonians are concerned about. House Bill 1178, reducing sentences for people who are failing to register as sex offenders. We heard some pretty compelling testimony that this deterrent is actually a really useful tool for keeping people safe. Again, that passed on party lines. I'm sorry, that was 2403, excuse me. We have some more, bad bills that are going to restrict cities and counties' abilities to not only enforce camping bans, but also permitting housing. The state is taking the "we will tell you how to do it" approach, and you will listen, and that is really not responsive to communities across the state. So we're very concerned there. We're looking at affordability in our state. That seems to be a buzzword around here, and I think we're still working to make sure there's a proper understanding of that from our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. We have a series of new taxes that are potentially up for debate here, whether it's a new tax on bottles costing Washington families thousands over the year, and new fees on tires, new restrictions on grocery stores, which is going to lead to even more pricing and impact. So these are all things that my floor leader April and I and others are working on and addressing. Hopefully we'll be able to stop those as Washingtonians tell us they want real affordability, not stuff that the word affordable, but going in the exact opposite direction. Before I turn it over to Senator Braun, I want to end with this. There has been a lot in the media recently about people getting denied passes to the House wings to cover us in Olympia. And our philosophy, Representative Stokesbury and I in our caucus, is if you want to come down and cover us, you should be here. More transparency is great. Left, right, or center, we don't particularly care. If you're covering what's going on in the legislature, we think you have a right and a responsibility to be down here. We've heard from some media that have been denied press passes. So while we're working to address that on the institution level at the House, we're going to take action as House Republicans. Stay tuned later today. We're going to have a press release on it, but I'll give you the first preview here. The House Republicans are going to be issuing our own media credentials. This is not, you have to be a Republican or have to agree with us in order to be here. We want people covering Olympia, talking about what we're doing, because this affects everyone from, deep blue Seattle to incredibly rural Toppenish, right? And red Toppenish. These are things that matter to us, and we want to make sure whether you get your news from traditional media or from new media sources that people are here covering you. So we're going to have more information on that, but we want people down here. So the House Republicans are going to take the lead to make sure that if people want to cover what's going on the House floor, what's going on in Olympia, that they're there. So with that, I will turn it over to Senator Brown.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. Great intro and great work on opening up your wings to the press in any fashion they choose to show up. I couldn't support that more. So a lot of things happened in the last week. I'll try to get through these pretty quickly. I'm sure you have lots of questions. Of course, the big item here in the Senate has been the income tax. We talked about that last week. The Democrats rushed that to a hearing and had to waive the 5-day rule to hear it on Friday. A little disappointing. We did get them to move the hearing time from 1 hour to 2 hours, which was, I guess, nice of them, but not nearly enough for what is, in my view, the largest bill of the session, maybe the biggest bill of the decade, maybe the last 2 decades. This is a big, big deal. And we had an overwhelming opposition. Over 60,000 folks signed in con, and despite some frankly bad reporting by one of the television stations, there is no evidence that had anything to do with bots. Senate admin, they don't really want to wade into this, but they feel very confident in their system to prevent that sort of thing from happening. There are some duplicates, but a relatively small percentage, and they were in both the con and the pro statements. So overwhelming opposition to the bill, overwhelming folks signed in to testify against the bill versus for the bill, and yet the Senate majority basically tried to divide it evenly to give the impression that it was an even show, and it's definitely not, especially as folks learn more and more. Sadly, the Senate Ways and Means last night, ignoring the very clear words, plain words in the Constitution that prohibit this tax, the 100-year precedent, ignoring the will of the people, 11 votes, and perhaps counting, and frankly, the economic impact and the very pointed choosing of winners and losers the Democrats have done with this bill and putting our small and medium business is in the crosshairs and unable to compete if this goes into effect with in their segment across the nation, across the world. So this is a big deal. We have a lot of work to do to stop this bill. They have tried to brand it in a way that is attractive in spite of the fact that it is very clearly just an income tax, and the Senate Majority Leader couldn't have been more clear that while the question in front of us this year is whether to tax with a high for just high earners, that future question remains open for future legislatures and would do nothing to stop that, including us offering the possibility of a constitutional amendment to prevent the expansion of the income tax last night. So it's pretty clear to us, I hope it's pretty clear to you where this is going. They want to get it by demonizing folks who have been successful in our state and then expanding it to everyone long term. At the same time they passed the income tax, they also passed a number of other bills at fiscal cutoff that drove up the price of many things. Chris mentioned affordability. They keep saying the word, but they don't seem to know what it means. And they passed bills that would increase the cost of food, increase cost to our agriculture sector, and therefore the cost of food, healthcare, energy, workers' compensation, and employment insurance. So you name it, they've been willing to pass bills, who did pass bills out of Ways and Means last night, that are going to drive up the cost for everyone across our state, going in the wrong direction. Second to last thing I'll mention is, in addition to the income tax bill, I think the other big bill that we have indication the Democrats want to run this week is the anti-initiative bill that will put more barriers between the people of our state and the direct access to democracy guaranteed to them by our state's constitution. This is the wrong way to go. It's anti-voter, it's anti-democracy, and it's just wrong for our state. It's not what Washington is about and has been about for many decades. So that's a lot of negative stuff. I will say one positive thing, very exciting, as we're proud to have, we expect to have the Seahawks here in the Senate chambers this afternoon, hopefully around 1 o'clock, and that certainly will be an exciting way to celebrate for all parts of our state and all parties. Congratulations to the Seahawks, and we're real proud to have them visit us today or later today. I'll stop right there and turn it over to questions.
All right, first we'll go to Simone Carter of McClatchy.
Good morning. Regarding the income tax bill, I was hoping that you could elaborate a bit on what the record number of people who signed in con says about how Washingtonians are viewing the proposal, and also if y'all could let me know what you're hearing from constituents.
Thanks for the question, Simone. I think it's pretty clear. If you just look at the numbers, this is by far the most people we've ever had sign in opposition to a bill. And put that in perspective, that happened in only a couple days because of the rush between dropping the bill, I think on Tuesday, and hearing it on Friday. There really wasn't a lot of time to get the word out. So I would say the 60,000, I think it was 64,000. It was just a first blush. As people get more knowledgeable about this, there is zero faith by the general populace that this is a high earners or as they like to brand it, a millionaire's tax. This is just an income tax that happens to have a high cutoff that is not protected in any way from future changes by the legislature. And people are deeply worried about what this will do to their lives, their families, and the cost of living here in the state of Washington.
Yeah, we just want to add a couple comments from my perspective in the House. Obviously, it appears that the Senate vehicle is the one that's moving, but I'm already getting tons of emails from everyday Washingtonians. These aren't millionaires, and they know what this is, right? People know that this is not going to stop at millionaires. That this is slick marketing to try to create an us versus them divide to get it through. But even some of the comments that were made during the hearing prove that this won't last. This will not be a millionaire's tax for long. First of all, immediately impacting small businesses. That I've got a lot of people that are scared about that would be impacted but are not millionaires, right? And that means jobs. That means additional, charity in our communities. However you want to look at it, but people are already trying to gather their W-2s, figure out what their charitable deductions were for last year, because they're going to fill out the original millionaire's tax, the federal income tax that we're all impacted by. Washingtonians are smarter than this, and they know that this is going to impact them, if not today, very quickly in the future.
Did you have a follow-up, Simone?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick one. So at the hearing on Friday on the tax, there were a couple of people who said that they would actually be on the hook to pay it if it were to pass into law, but they testified in support and broadly argued that investment in communities is inherently pro-business. So I was hoping that you guys could share your thoughts on that sort of testimony.
I mean, there's nothing stopping these individuals from writing whatever check they want to us. And charity is when you make the choice to give money. This isn't, investing when somebody takes it from you and spends it how they want. So that's great. If they want to do it, they can donate money. I'll follow up with the actual email or the address. They can send it to us. But claiming that they're going to help others be charitable, I think is pretty ridiculous in my opinion. Go ahead and pay what you want to us. But I think that a lot of these people that are active in our communities are already investing where they want to get a return on investment. And I don't think that means they're anti-tax. I think they want to make sure that when they're investing their dollars, that it's going to what they want it to go to.
Well, yeah, I don't know the folks that testified on that, so I can't speak to them individually, but I can tell you overwhelmingly as I talk to folks who are deeply invested in Washington business, particularly in pass-through entities that are going to be hard hit by this, they're absolutely worried about this, what it will do to their businesses, to their ability to employ folks, to their ability to invest future earnings in Washington. And a lot of them have either already made the decision to leave Washington based on previous tax increases or are actively looking at that decision. And I know that the Democratic majority likes to say, oh, that's not true. I'd encourage them to go look at the data from the IRS, from migration, and all that's dated. All that's based on previous tax increases. We have every reason to believe this is going to continue to see capital flight from our state. And while there's always folks who have different opinions, that's what's great about our state and our country. The vast majority do not seem to agree with the couple people that testified in that regard on Friday.
Well, and I'd like to add too that this isn't replacing any taxes. This isn't about the tax, just how taxes are viewed in the state of Washington. This is about adding another tax on top of the capital gains, on top of all of the other taxes that we continue to have in the state of Washington. This isn't about right-sizing our tax code or anything. This is an insatiable appetite for more revenue to do more spending. We have heard that from our colleagues in the other chamber, that it's just too enticing when you think about nearly $4 billion in revenue being collected every year. And I really worry that if this is to be put into law, that insatiable appetite is going to continue, and we will see less common sense, pragmatic budgets to deal with the issues in the state of Washington. They will continue to lower that threshold so they can continue to spend more, and there's going to be no appetite for doing anything common sense.
And Simone, on the capital flight piece, I can tell you, I know we talked about it last week, but as a real estate agent in my day job, it is true, it is real. I just got another email this week that I forwarded on to my team that they're done and they're moving to Montana. And I'm getting this weekly at this point in time without the millionaire's tax passing. It's an accumulation of the death tax that passed, as well as the capital gains tax. It is a constant. We are going to lose a lot of really good people out of Washington that are amazing philanthropists in our communities that are giving back and helping. And so I think even though sometimes they talk about a net in, we're seeing a net out of really good taxpayers and people that are helping in our communities right now.
All right, next we'll go to Jerry Cornfield of Washington State Standard.
Good morning. Thanks for the question, the chance to ask a question. I just, Representative Connors, you just brought up something I was interested in. The estate tax moved out of the Senate Ways and Means Committee with full support from Republicans. So is this a victory for Republicans in rolling back the Democrats' agenda? And how does this factor into the bigger picture of the capital flight?
I'll have to defer a little bit to Senator Braun on that because I have not seen that bill yet, Jerry, on how it's coming out of the Senate. But even with the rollback of the estate tax, I can't imagine that if we pass this millionaire's tax, which if it's going to hit small things like S corps and everything else, that we're going to see businesses and people that are wealthier in Washington State want to actually stay here. I think the political climate here has been so anti-business and so anti-growth that we're seeing people that they just don't want to be in Washington anymore, Jerry.
Yeah, well, I think it's a tacit admission by the majority that they got it wrong last year when they made our estate tax the highest in the country. I mean, this sent a huge signal, and it's been a big part of the capital flight over the last year, certainly. And whether this will stem the tide or not, I don't know. When you do that, but at the same time you raise you suggest an income tax that's I think the fourth highest in the nation. That's kind of mixed signals. I mean, compared to California, and I literally have talked to I think 3 or 4 folks who have re-domiciled to California in the last year because and they have a 13% top margin, I believe, maybe, but they have no estate tax. So certainly it's a move in the right direction. It's hard to feel very feel like you're winning when they pass out an income tax at the same time.
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to add is, it's a victory in that it's just one more notch in our "we were right about everything" hat. But I think really what it is it's an acknowledgement that the Laffer curve is real. As a matter of fact, I think they've seen the direct result from this is they've realized they're going to be getting even less money than they were before. So in a way, it's incentivizing people to stay and probably will increase revenues to the state, because that economic curve is real and it applies even with an estate tax like this.
Did you have a follow-up, Jerry?
Just because, yes, Representative Corey mentioned the notch in the belt, and for those journalists who are not on the call, what bills yesterday by cutoff in the House and Senate committees, the Appropriations, Ways and Means, what was the best bill that the Republicans either blocked, killed, or neutralized with amendments? And it'd be for any of the members. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that question, Jerry. I've got a couple that we're happy about. There was a House Bill 2313, which was a government takeover of grocery stores. House Bill 2275, there was a utility wildfire fund that would have meant insanely high electric rates for utility rates for Washingtonians. 2589, allowing encampments on all college campuses. You know, that was another good one. So those are just a couple. I think we're going to see more again as we work to address the affordability piece. So those are some we're celebrating as of today.
I'm drawing a blank on the bill number. I'll send it to you, Jerry. But I probably, on a policy level, we stopped a bill the part of the bill I actually fully support. It was to address the JR travesty that's happening at Green Hill and allow the agency some more flexibility for managing population, but at the same time also put in some very controversial policy that will allow judges to release violent juvenile criminals, folks convicted of crimes early back into the community. So I think it's better to stop that. I think the same bill is still alive in the House. So I'm not sure it's all dead, but that's I think a step in the right direction. The other one I'd mention, although again I think it's maybe temporary, is this increase in the complete ban on plastic bags and the increase in the cost to buy plastic bags, and even they wanted to increase the cost to buy paper bags. So that was a win, although because there's a fee, I suspect they can make the argument that it's necessary to implement the budget. So I'm not sure it's completely dead just yet.
All right, next we'll go to Jonathan Martin of the Washington Observer.
Yeah, going on Jerry's question, is there one bills that did pass that you were proud of?
There are a couple others, Jonathan. I don't commit all these to memory, but there's a whole slug of bad labor bills that came out of Labor and Commerce, and I think that at least two of those didn't make it through in
Senator Braun, do you want me to start while you're looking at that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we actually have a lot of good Republican bills that I think are still alive, especially around affordability, that are worth highlighting. Representative Valdez, House Bill 1307, a diaper tax exemption. Obviously, there's a lot of families. I'm one that is buying diapers for 2 kids right now. I know that will be a game changer for a lot of families in terms of savings. Representative Mangiera's House Bill 1340, it's a tax exemption for some prepared foods. House Bill 2130, Representative Orcutt has a tax repeal on last year's tax on services that has been a pretty negative impact on not just people, but a lot of our local nonprofits, as well as school districts and the like. And then one more that I think is a good highlight, House Bill 2208, Representative McClintock, some continuing education and licensing sales tax exemptions. If we're going to mandate licensing and continuing education in certain fields, we shouldn't be making money off it, and that will put more money back in the hands of working Washingtonians that are subject to these licenses.
Did you have a follow-up, Jonathan?
Wanted to ask you about the sheriff bill, the regulating, basically requiring extended background checks on sheriffs. I saw a Republican amendment was attempting to apply that same standard of background checks to legislators. I was wondering if that was a serious idea, or what you thought about that bill regarding the sheriff's culture.
Yeah, that was an amendment offered in Ways and Means on the anti-sheriff bill that did pass out last night. And yeah, absolutely serious. I think it's absolutely reasonable if we're going to decide at this point we need to have certain standards for elected sheriffs, we should apply similar standards, and maybe not in terms of qualification, we don't all have to have gone to the FBI Academy, but we should have some level of expertise if we're going. If we think that's right for sheriffs, it also the same standard ought to apply to legislators and other elected officials. So absolutely, it was serious.
All right, next we'll go to Carlene Johnson of the Center Square.
Okay, a couple of questions. I watched Rep. Travis Couture's emotional testimony in House Appropriations late yesterday on 2660, the bill to sort of change the Keeping Families Together Act, but it just doesn't, as he put it, putting lipstick on a pig. He offered amendments to actually, get rid of the imminent harm language and make it easier to protect kids in these drug addicted homes. Doesn't sound like, I think there was maybe one of the amendments that was adopted, but the rest weren't. So I just want your sense of this year was maybe an opportunity to fix this when we had more dead kids and more critical incidents in 2025 than ever. And yet it doesn't seem like we're gonna go another year without a fix. So I guess this is for any member to respond to.
So I'll take a stab at that, Carlene. First and foremost, what Travis said yesterday was absolutely correct, right? We have to make this change. And when you see his emotion, I think we're all in that boat. We're all feeling that right now. We have more time. We are not giving up on this. I agree with him that this bill is more, flash than it is actual substance in helping address the need in fixing the Keeping Families Together Act in regards to imminent harm. So I'm gonna take the positive spin on this. That bill obviously doesn't fix it. There's other vehicles, and I can't think of the number off the top of my head that we're gonna work to fix imminent harm. But you rest assured that this is not the end of our fight, and that I think on behalf of our caucus, we're willing to make a statement and a stand in order to get this fixed, because we cannot let this continue. It's impacting all of our districts. I've seen firsthand, very personally, how this imminent harm is being applied and how it's going to lead to more children dying because of decisions being made by the state.
And I'll just add that I was sitting next to Rep. Couture yesterday, and he was visibly shaking. He has put his heart and soul into trying to get this law fixed. And, one of the things he said yesterday, for those who haven't maybe seen the video, is he said 2 years ago he was sitting in his seat, like 4 seats away from he's sitting right now, and he warned the majority that another 100 kids are going to have to die before we have done anything. And it's exactly what has happened. He said, I'm not Nostradamus, but I predicted this would happen, and it did. And like Rep. Corey said, this should be one of the top priorities. It should not be a partisan issue. It should be one of the top priorities to be able to fix what has happened in the legislature with the Keeping Families Together Act. And like Rep. Corey, in my district, we watched a young girl from Kennewick die with fentanyl Skittles that she put up her nose and in her mouth because she was so hungry that she didn't have anything to eat. And so you can go back and find that newspaper article, but it should be a top priority for everyone this year to get that taken care of.
We have a similar bill that passed out of Ways and Means. I think it's 6319. And again, it tries to get after a real problem, a tragic problem, but it really nibbles around the edges and it doesn't solve it. And it falls short of, and it's a broader issue. One is we got to have the right staffing, and frankly, DCYF is wrong on this issue. They've been adding middle managers at an alarming rate for years, while holding a constant or even declining frontline frontline staff, so they don't have the people. They don't press for rulings when it comes to current law, and the current law, as we've talked about, is too tight to allow easy to address these issues. Just like in our case in the Senate, at least, just the stats on that bill are damning. The number of children who they know are in high-risk homes and yet are doing nothing about it should be alarming to anybody that's paying attention to this issue. And then the last thing I'll say is one slightly positive thing. We passed out of the Senate, in fact, in the second week, a bill that would add fentanyl to the child endangerment statute. We'll see. This is, I think, the fourth time it's been in the House. Representative Goodman has stood in the way each year. Hopefully, he'll finally see a way forward for this. There have to be consequences when parents expose their children to dangerous chemicals if we're going to have a change in behavior.
Yeah, and before your follow-up question, Carlene, sorry, I just want to add two more pieces here. The only time we get a critical incident report with either one of these fatalities or near fatalities is when there's been known engagement with the department. So these aren't kids that were off the radar that nobody knew about. These are kids that were known and documented by the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And whether it was because they felt their hands were tied or if they actually believe in this, like, we need to fix that. We need to make sure that it is clear that they need to remove these children. And we can argue it or not argue, because we're all, I think, pretty much in agreement. We can support services and supports for these families to get healthy, but until these families are clean and sober, these children can't be in the home. They are going to continue dying, and it is inexcusable. And I will end with this. I'd be happy to share with anyone on this call. I have all the fatality reports with the pictures and the stories behind these, so they're not just, you know, a blacked out name or number in a report. These are kids, babies, children that are precious and should still be alive today, that had we done our job as a state.
My follow-up is really just related to that, because I'm not able to get Secretary Sen to grant an interview or even provide a statement. I'm just getting crickets from DCYF on that repeated request. Have any of you been able to have a conversation with Secretary Sen?
We have not. We've gotten some letters back, and frankly, they leave more questions than answers. It seems to be the practice that when it comes to some of these more controversial issues, the department is taking a back seat and silencing it, or not silencing it, I should say, correct myself, not weighing in when I think they have a responsibility to weigh in. And frankly, my guess is the department in general is afraid of answering questions on this, because they are absolutely on the wrong side of history on this one. And the sad part is they could easily turn around and become champions for fixing this. But I think there's some sort of ideology there that is just preventing them from doing that.
I did meet with Secretary Sen, I think, the first part of December, if my memory serves correctly. It was a cordial meeting. I think her heart's in the right spot. She understands, she appeared to understand the challenge she has, but I think they're just overwhelming them, whether it's juvenile rehabilitation or child protection services or foster care. Every one of these programs is in disarray. And it's swimming in a kind of a bureaucratic zoo at the agency and failing at every point to make meaningful improvements. So I don't doubt their goodwill or their good intentions, but there's no evidence from my perspective they're making any progress on any of these very, very difficult issues.
Carlene, there was also a letter that was sent out back in January from Secretary Sen to some members of our caucus on this issue. I'm happy to get that to you. Rep. Couture sent it out to the entire Appropriations Committee last night following testimony.
That would be great to have that. Thank you.
All right, next we'll go to Mitchell Rowland of the Spokesman Review.
Hi guys, good morning. I had a question for Rep. Connors. You had put out a bill on Sunday saying that you had heard rumors about a potential floor vote on the income tax bill this week. I was wondering if you had any other details you could share. Obviously, it was voted out of committee yesterday. Just on any timeline that you've gotten of like when that could actually come up this week.
No, I don't have the actual date that it will come up. That was coming from members on the other side of the aisle, and obviously it looks like they're pushing for that because we did see it come out of Ways and Means already on their hearing, and then also we all think it's going to probably have a little bit harder time in the House than the Senate. So anticipating they're going to try to get it here early so they can start working on working their members for votes.
Gotcha. And then I did have a separate question. There's been talk about potential litigation challenging the constitutionality of the income tax. I was wondering if that's something that either of your caucuses envision filing, or if you anticipate that would come from like an outside organization, or just from somebody kind of away from the legislature, if that's something that you envision kind of being a part of.
Yeah, there's no path for us to do it from the legislature. That there is some limited if all the caucuses agreed, but certainly we don't agree on this issue. So I would imagine a legal challenge would come from an outside organization, and you could look at the ones who have challenged these types of taxes in the past, whether it's the capital gains income tax or some of the other taxes that have been challenged legally. I would expect you'd get a challenge from that direction at some point. I mean, we saw, former Attorney General Rob McKenna testify in the hearing last Friday, pointing out the clear unconstitutionality of the bill. I mean, and folks are trying to claim that, well, some states have said that income is not property, but if you take the time, and Rob pointed this out, to look at their constitution versus our constitution is much broader. Everything tangible and intangible owned is a pretty broad statement, much broader than anything you'll find in other parts of the country. So I do expect there to be a challenge. I don't know who will bring it, and I think if they're relying on the plain language of the Constitution, which is their duty, they will find it unconstitutional.
All right, thank you.
All right, and the last question will go to Aida Massoud from the Washington News Publishers Association.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. With Congress discussing the Save America Act, which would add new requirements to the voter registration process, and President Trump's recent statements about calling for nationalizing elections, what is the Washington Republicans' response, or how are you guys approaching these issues?
I think you have to bifurcate that. On the issue of making sure that elections are safe and fair, I think there's some important work that has been proposed at the federal level. I don't have a clear indication whether that's going to go forward or not. In terms of the idea of nationalizing the elections, I don't think that's likely to happen, nor do I think it should happen.
Yeah, I haven't looked at all the details of the SAFE Act. Been primarily focused on what's going on here in our state. But as far as Trump's comments around nationalizing elections, I don't think it's viable. I don't think that's helpful either. We've got, delegated powers that allow us to run our elections, and I have full faith that we will be able to do so.
And do you have a follow-up question?
I think I'm good, thank you.
All right, with that, we will go to closing remarks, starting with Representative Corey.
All right, thank you, John. Thanks everyone for being here. Like I said in the outset, we're living on a prayer. We got 30 days left. Washingtonians should hold on, pay attention, because there's a lot of stuff that will impact them going on still. House Republicans are going to continue to fight for working Washingtonians that we represent. And that means focusing on passing measures to improve affordability in this state, not reduce it. Measures to make sure that Washingtonians can be safe in their communities, safe not only from criminals, but also from an Olympia that wants to reach in and tell them what they can and can't do. And so we're all hands on deck. We've got about a week to go of floor action. And I would say that we're going to be there till, ready to fight until 5 o'clock to make sure that we can stop a lot of this bad legislation and hopefully pass some good things in the meantime.
Yeah, I'll just add, we continue to be focused on affordability and stopping what I think are bad bills for the people of the state of Washington, whether it's the income tax or taxes on increase the cost of food or clothing or agriculture or healthcare or labor costs. All these things are bad for the state of Washington. We're going to continue to fight against them. But in the meantime, hope to see you here 1 o'clock. Go Hawks.
Thank you, everyone.